so welcome everyone to Inspire. I'm Louis Sullivan, and I'll be talking about design libraries with Bit.dev. So a little bit about me. I'm a software engineer at Inspire, focused on modern web app development. Previously, I worked at 3View as a software engineer. I went to Grand Valley State University, where I studied computer science. And a couple fun facts is me and my friends go on one national park a year, and we go hike. So this year we went to Glacier. So we took a lot of photos there, and then another thing I've been challenging myself is my fear of heights, and so I've been doing like high ropes climbing. So now let's go to the topic. So what are design libraries? A design library is a group of components. So what's a component? A component can be a drop-down, it could be a chart. It's just something that makes up part of the website. And so what's useful about it is you have one place of truth for your component, and then it can live in all these different other web apps. And so by building these components within the design library, you can design it by isolating one component at a time. So in this storybook example, you're just looking at a chart, and through using TypeScript, you get to document what kind of properties go into the component. So you get a description, the data type it needs to have, and then a default value. And then as you're iterating these components, you want to make sure that you're not breaking, because like a component such as a date picker can be made up of multiple components. And so by changing one little subpoint, part of the component, you want to make sure that all the tests are still passing. And then the next key point of a design library is to show the different use cases. So in Storybook, you have these different stories where you're passing in different properties to show off like how the component is rendering and will look on your website. And then the most important part is the reusability. So developers solve a singular UI problem, and so then all the downstream apps can then pull in that component and have it on their platform. So when we're building these design libraries, we're often building them into a singular like module, and that module is versioned out, but it can lead into some problems. And this is the idea of a monolithic shared component library. So all these like downstream web apps, they have a dependency on a singular version. And so if you add a new component to the design library, then you always have to be fetching the newest version of the library. So for larger enterprises, a monorepo of shared components can lead to some complications, including unintended breaking changes in one component can make the whole library version unstable. So how can we solve this? So one of the things that Bit.dev does is it has versioning on the component level. And so versioning a singular component will not impact the whole ecosystem. The components are like separated into their areas of concern. And so you can import specific components at their version. And for example, if you wanted to make the bit team, which is a scope, and I'll talk about that later, and then just the basic design button at a specific version, that button can now be part of your project, and you know exactly what it's doing, and you can go roll back on versions or go to the latest one. And so what's the type of flow that you would have with Bit? So you have a workspace where you would build your component, and that's where this graph is right here. It's kind of hard to see, but I'll just read them out to you. So you have track components. So locally, you would tag that component with a version, and then you would publish it out to the Bit cloud. And so this is where other teams would be able to discover your component and figure out if that solves their use case. And then if they do find it useful, they can then create it as a dependency on their project. But let's say they want to iterate on that component. They can then import that component into their workspace, modify it as they see fit, version that individual component out, and then push it back into the Bit.cloud. All right, so let's see how this works in practice. So this is the Bit team that designed. So Bit team has a pretty well built out component library. They have loaders, they have buttons, they have headers, and you can click into any one of these components, and you can also scope them out. So so this is just for design, but then you can also have components for just like React hooks, and you can iterate on the hooks as well. And so scope is just to be able to control who can view it and who can edit your component. So let's click into the input. So the overview is it's a mixture of Markdown and React. It's called MDX. And so it's a way to see what you're passing into the component along with a live preview of how, so this is a dropdown. And so you can interact with the React component itself. And then you have compositions, which are meant to bring more examples to what the component does. So there's quite a few of those. And this also just React. And then here, the component itself has TypeScript. And so that's what's actually being generated within this workspace of what properties you pass to the component and what type they have, their default, and then a description. So that's how you would know how to use it. And so if you want to use the component, just type on use. And so if you want, you can use yarn. And you can just add this drop down to your project. But if you want to iterate this drop down, you can do import drop down into your workspace. Using this, it'll be the latest version, but here you can see all the iterations of the dropdown, and you can click on one of them, and then the use will actually have like a little @ symbol with the specific version. So you're not tied down to always pulling the newest version. So here, compositions. This is just more what we were seeing on the previous page, but more of a full screen method, so you can actually interact with them. And then the other cool thing about Bit is you see this dropdown has a whole lot of dependencies, so like a menu, a drawer, and you can see what those components are versioned to as well. So I have a button locally running on my local host, and so I figured I would show you how to tag a component and make an iteration and then push it out to my scope, which is, it says Louis at Inspire 11 in design. So let's do that. All right, so let's go to the button. So in the button, we have the button.composition, the button.mdx, the SCSS for styling, and then a test. So let's first uncomment this MDX, and this is for documentation, along with like providing examples. This is just a button with the option to open a link to go to the React Meetup Chicago, and then save it, and then save it. Should see it now. And so if you click here, it'll open in a new tab. It'll be the React meetup, and you can see that it's not actually on our Bit.cloud yet. So let's say you design wanted to see these changes. Well, how are they going to do that? So now within the terminal, so on the left side it has a server running, and here just another terminal where you can list all the components you have, and this will show what version they're on. So we see that the button is on version 0.09. So we want to tag this. So we would just do bit tag, and then take the name of the scope along with the component, and then it will run. And at the very end, you'll see that the version gets bumped to 0.10. Give me a second. Okay, so then if we do bit list again, we now see that the button has been iterated once. So now we want to export that to our Bit.cloud. Give it another couple seconds. And so it should have exported now, and all you need to do is go to your Bit Cloud and then just hit reload, and you'll see the version here. Well, it was at 8, but now it's at 0.10, and you can see it got updated a minute ago. And so now we should be able to see our link button, and click on that, and it opens up the React meetup. So, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
So what if you wanted the button, if you want to have a different color or font or something? Is there a styling to is there a way you can customize the styling in the button?
Yeah, so I had like a SCSS, and I had like a primary, secondary color, and I was just passing in like the secondary, but you can definitely just pass in like a class name, and that could change like how you wanted the color of the button to be. And that would be something that you'd see in like the composition of like different colors being passed in, and how it actually re-render the component.
If I wanted to use like this as like a monolithic way, would I just do they recommend to just have like just a package JSON that would import like a lot of the framework, or they just recommend you pull your own options individually?
So I believe you can still install all the components within the scope to your like downstream like front-end web app. But I think the main use case is just like importing them one at a time, so the bundle's smaller.
Yeah,
but you can definitely still do it that way.
One thing that kind of confuses me is why is the necessity for having a bunch of versions for, maybe it's just example I'm showing you, but it's like, I can see it for like a math kernel library, but I'm trying to think about like what's the reason why you have like 20 different versions for a button.
Okay, so you have like all these like downstream like front-end apps that are all like importing like a very specific like button, and so they might just want the button to look a certain way, but then another team wants it to look a different way, and so they just versioned it up, and then their dependency is just on that specific version. And so like by you updating the version, it doesn't affect other people if they then want to go create another component and just pull in that component B. So the button will be unchanged. So you're not, by you updating like a singular component, it won't break someone else's like dependency on that component.
But if it's, I'm thinking about how like the front end with the DOM object, how it's generated for the user, how would, unless you have a very complex button that does very low level stuff, if it just is a loose wrapper around the HTML DOM button class object. How will you break people make small changes?
Okay, I think a good example is like I had a dependency on like an older style library, and I just like built a new component in it, and so I needed to pull that new component and then the latest version of the style library. But then down the road, someone wrote one of the components in that library, so then I pulled in their broken change, and so it kind of I only needed component B, but I had a dependency on component A that someone updated, and then the whole library came out soon. Yeah.
You heard of Stylebook?
Oh, Storybook?
Or Storybook, yeah.
Yeah. I love Storybook.
Okay. And Bit.dev is kind of like Storybook with a bunch of more features.
Yeah.
Cloud, basically cloud service. And can you run it locally?
Yeah. So you can run Storybook locally. You can run Bit locally.
In Bit.dev, like if you wanted to host your components, then you local method.
I think it's a good question. I think
You
it
don't
is like
use it.
cloud-based,
Okay.
but you can even host Storybook.
If you were running a server there, I was wondering what that server was.
Yes. Okay. I'll go back to that. Yeah.
It's
So
not the Bit.dev server, right?
yeah, it's just localhost, and so it's a Storybook.
It's not like the Bit.dev server is running locally.
Yeah. So this one's not hosted. So this.
Oh, that is running locally.
Yeah, this one's running locally, and then I'm sorry if that was unclear. I
Okay.
pushed up
You are running
like my
it.
local changes,
Okay.
and then here is bit.cloud.
So you can run their like cloud service locally.
Well, you only have like your workspace, and so like
Okay. But it supports the size.
yeah, but yeah, so like Storybook, you can host it on the server, but you kind of have to build all that out with.
No, forget Storybook. I was just kind of.
Yeah.
But it's in the same kind of class.
Yeah, it has. It tries to solve like documentation, like different different examples of how the components implemented, but then along with like the versioning as well.
So you can pull the library straight from the service.
Yes.
It lives in your database.
So yeah, they're all like NPM packages, and then if you go here, you can just pull in. This would be like the latest button right here. You do yarn 2.
Can you go back a screen? Did you just a second ago that you had? Tab?
Oh, this one?
No.
Oh, here.
Other tab. No, it was like a home page. Like one more.
Oh,
Yeah,
this one.
can you go
Oh,
over this page. What is this about? What are those cards?
okay. So this is the scope. It's like BitTeam's design, and then these are all components. So you have one for color border. You have a button. You scroll through them. There was like a loader, and so
Oh, so they're like different front end components.
yes.
Not libraries, just components. But
Yes,
could be
these are just-
libraries, okay.
Yeah, they're just components.
They have a service that you can cobble together and have just
Wait, say that again?
Do they have like a feature where you can create an app using just their components like drag and drop?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So you can have components within a component. And so I believe if you go to Bit.dev, which is like their documentation site, they have like an interactive tool where, depending on where your cursor is, so they have a component called like Wiki, and this is their, wait a second, I'm not sure what's. There's this inspect tool. Okay, there we go. Just took a second. But this whole wiki is one component, and then it's made out of subcomponents. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's running so slow. But everything on here is a component, and then you can see the version of it. So a component can be as small as a toggle, but as big as a whole like wiki website. So, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.